joining us today. My name is Rebecca Cooley. I'll be your moderator today. We are airing live from the AOS studio in downtown New Orleans. We started this discussion about 6 months ago about how we as a community can emerge smarter. We realize that businesses, institutions, and communities should be resilient all the time, not just when responding to a crisis. This month, we're going to turn our focus to something that's near and dear to our hearts here at AOS and also personally. We've invited 5 distinguished panelists from local nonprofits here in New Orleans to help discuss how they are playing an integral role in pivoting and responding to the recent events that have happened here. Nonprofits play a vital role in building and sustaining healthy communities by providing critical services that contribute to the economic stability of our region. These organizations play a fundamental role in creating a more equitable and thriving community, and they've been described as strengthening the fabric of our region here. So I would love to introduce and thank our panelists that have joined us here today. We will be utilizing the chat feature. There should be a chat on your Zoom account. Please feel free to enter any questions as we're going through these topics, and we will try to get to as many as we can at the end. So with that, we will jump straight into introductions. I would love for everyone here to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Julia.
Right, Julia Bland, I'm the CEO of the Louisiana Children's Museum.
Thank you. Kevin.
Kevin Ferguson, I'm the current board president for Young Leadership Council.
Welcome. Elise.
Hi everyone, I'm Elise Gallinot Goldman. I'm the executive director of KidSmart, an arts education nonprofit here in New Orleans.
You, Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel Hammer. I'm president and CEO of the Historic New Orleans Collection.
Welcome. And last but not least, Sonny.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sonny. I am the founder and CEO of Son of a Saint, a mentorship program in New Orleans supporting fatherless boys.
And thank you all again. So we'll just jump straight in. According to a report composed by Ganoff and UNO, our community here relies on 17,000 nonprofit organizations registered with the Louisiana Secretary of State's office to provide essential services to our most vulnerable members of our community. So I'd love to ask to each one of you who are representing 5 of 17,000 is, if your organization went away today, who would it matter to and why? We'll just start with Julia.
Wow, well, I think there are a lot of families how a community really sets its values when you have an institution like a children's museum. So having a bigger, broader community focus on our youngest citizens would be a real loss as well.
Absolutely. And I know Kevin was mentioning that I think his children want to go there once a week. So Kevin, what about for you? If your organization went away today, who would it matter to and why?
Thanks, Rebecca. I think 2 groups really specifically when I think about it, so I think about young professionals in the area that are community and leadership oriented. What YLC really represents is a low barrier of entry for young people to get involved in the community and to develop as leaders. I'll use my personal example. I grew up in New Orleans, but I left for college. And so when I moved back 2 years after Katrina, I really had a great interest in getting involved and being a part of the community. In the first 2 years I was back here, I didn't really engage in any substantial way. Once I joined YLC, all of a sudden I had the immediate ability to have an impact on the community and really network with other like-minded individuals as well. And then secondly, the broader nonprofit ecosystem here. Really when you look at our board, roughly 80% are first-time board members. So we take a serious responsibility in making sure that as people come through YLC and develop, be it as project leaders or board members, that they're able to go on and contribute to other nonprofits and organizations in the city afterwards.
Absolutely. And we have a board member at AOS, so we really enjoy and engage with your organization. Elise.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're really working in schools every year. We work with about 3,000 students in New Orleans public schools and train another 700 educators. So the work that we do is really based in the public schools and working with educators and students. So I think that would probably be our prime target. But the other thing that we really work on is developing teaching artists to be able to develop their craft and their skills. So a lot of our programs are geared towards helping teaching artists develop those skills professionally. And so I think that, you know, our kids in the city are educators and our artists and our teaching artists.
Thank you for that service. Daniel.
Well, you know, everything that we do revolves around our collections of materials relating to the history and culture of New Orleans and the region. And so, you know, we matter for everybody who has a story to tell about that. And my experience with New Orleanians, that's pretty much every New Orleanian. You know, we all really treasure our home as a big part of who we are. And what we do is we preserve materials related to that and focus on making them available so that everybody can make use of them. And so anybody who has a story to tell about New Orleans, if we weren't doing what we were doing, it would be harder for them to tell that story.
Thank you for preserving that legacy and history. And Sonny.
Yes. So I think obviously the boys that we serve, we're growing about 200 boys. So, you know, they're in our program from age 10. They start age 10 with us till they're about 21. So that's a long period of time that they're with us during those adolescent years. So I would say obviously affecting them, their lives, their futures. We have this 2-generation approach, obviously also supporting their single moms, the aunts, the grandmothers, everybody kind of surrounding them in their household. But another thing I think is the teachers in the school, because we provide I think a good service for them, knowing that they can communicate with us, that we have the boy's best interests there. We can advocate for the boy if there's something at school that's not even going right. So I think that the teachers and the schools would be affected, but also I think just overall the future of New Orleans, because, you know, these 200 boys that we're serving, that number will hopefully grow in 10 years, they'll be our next leaders. So I think that overall the future of New Orleans would be affected if we weren't around.
And Rebecca, let me add something here too, because I think, you know, you started off by talking about nonprofits being the fabric of the community, and the threads that run through fabric involve so many other organizations, whether it's other nonprofits or corporations or community groups of any sort. And I think, you know, each of us has big, broad networks that we leverage and we link together, we partner together, we advance, form cohort groups and so on. So while it's easy for each of us to talk about, you know, sort of our core audiences, if you will, the broader network, the woven fabric that comes together is really the strength of nonprofits and the pieces that each of us contributes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julia, for summing it up in that way. And, you know, looking at how our businesses have needed to change and shift over the last 6 months, I was curious, and I know our audience is curious, and how have you pivoted sort of your organization, either the execution of the mission, or has your messaging shifted at all? And Kevin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, certainly. You know, I think for us, COVID has presented this unique challenge, right? For most people, that you want to engage with your membership, your constituency, in a way to still be effective. And for us, leadership development is something that's always been a focus. And we typically do that through community service, as well as some other factors. So we had to decide early on kind of what were the acceptable risk, you know, for convening people in person. And we did make some determination that for our members that were out there actively engaging and volunteering, there was an acceptable amount of risk within obviously the proper safety protocols to still meet in person, still engage, and still really execute the things they were doing. The challenge we really had was for the other parts of the organization. When we were talking about convening and general leadership development, meetings, committees, volunteer teams getting together to plan their events, was to really focus that virtually. And there's some challenges with that. The biggest thing is that the communication when you're doing things virtually, it's just a little different, right? It can be very effective, but, you know, to something that I've heard Shelby say, you know, he thinks it's about 75%. of what it normally is. You know, so for us, being able to still have our board meetings remotely and virtually, being able to have our leadership committee meetings virtually was something that was just necessary. You know, those weren't risks that we were thought were worth taking to get people in person for things that we could do remotely. But through that, you know, what we've realized is that there's an opportunity to be more available and to engage some more people with some of those remote services and the meetings. You know, typically I've actually seen higher participation rates for our board meetings and some of our committee meetings with the virtual meetings. But ultimately, you know, one of the things that we've realized is that there's a lot of different ways to do leadership development. And while those in-person volunteering events are a big part of it, some of the other offerings we've been able to provide through webinars, through connecting with other leaders in the community and getting those in front of our group have been just as valuable.
Absolutely. And Daniel, I know that through the Historic New Orleans collection, that technology was already sort of a big initiative that you guys had put into place prior to COVID. You know, can you explain a little bit of how you utilize that technology to maybe reach a broader audience and any pivoting in that greater outreach?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest pivot occurred very early on, you know, when we began to understand that it was possible that we might have to shut down temporarily. We were really focused on ensuring that our productivity on future upcoming projects remained on schedule so that when we reopened, we wouldn't be, you know, behind the 8 ball in terms of our upcoming exhibitions and programs and things like that. But then when we did shut down, we very quickly understood that that wasn't the focus that we needed to pay attention to. We need to pay attention to turning our website into the front door of our museum, because that was the only place where we could engage with people. And it might be that way for a while. And so we were able to lean on a lot of technology infrastructure that we already had in place, particularly as it relates to our collections and the access to the material that we create our programming out of. We've been very focused on digitization of our collections for the purpose of increasing access for a long time. We've been on the forefront of that since that began to be a thing in our field. And so we have a lot of assets when it comes to digitized collections that we were able to lean on. We have a number of, we already had in place a number of also, you know, databases and things that we were able to turn into access points for people through our website. And so we, you know, had to come up with a methodology for making our website more of our front door. We did that. We created a History from Home webpage, and we dedicated a lot of staff to working on that who normally would have been doing other things, but because we were closed, they were available. So it involved a lot of reappropriating of resources, I guess you could say. So that was a big pivot in a couple of different ways, but also we were able to be successful because we had a lot of existing things, assets that we could lean on for that. And then as it relates to how we've been doing our messaging about what we're doing, I would say that it's generally speaking become much more mission oriented. And so, you know, our messaging is much less about come in and engage with us by visiting this exhibit or coming to this program, and much more about this is what we do. You know, we are about this. It's much more about calling to people's attention the relevance, because that's what is going to get people to want to engage. This is a time where people are even more so than maybe they were before, really looking to engage with things that they think are important right now. And so we're concentrating, I think, largely on pointing out how the things that we do are relevant to people's current lives. That isn't, not to say that we didn't do that before, but I feel that that's become a more front and center, more primary component of our message now than it was before.
And I'll piggyback, Daniel. I think you guys, and I'll say this too, the general museum ecosystem in the city has done an incredible job of making the offerings more available through technology. I've had the chance to log into a few different ones, Noma as well. And it's really incredible that you're able to still offer that even when people may not be comfortable or able to physically enter the spaces. So kudos to the entire group out there that's leveraging that technology.
Thanks, Kevin. That's great to hear. We're very proud of what we've done. Certainly, we're very pleased with the level of engagement that we've seen. We're interacting with a lot of people online. And maybe we'll get to this in the future discussion as we go through the discussion today. But, the really compelling challenge for us is building bridges between that online engagement that we're having right now and our future goals for, full capacity museum engagement once we're able to operate in that way again.
And Sonny, I know a big part of executing your mission is physically having mentors and the boys together. How have you sort of pivoted during this time?
Excuse me. Well, I think, the mentors are one part and a very important part of our work. They were doing a lot of virtual kind of meetings. We have about 30 activities a month that we put on to get as an organization. So the mentors would log on and have cooking classes with the boys or do yoga, those sort of things. But also we, focus a lot on the basic needs. We delivered about 10,000 meals to the families. We had our staff come to the office and they were actually delivering with some volunteers. We were able to get all of our boys' laptops and access to internet, which was very important, and just keeping up with their educational needs. Because we kind of see ourselves as frontline for them, right, for the boys. And so as much as we can do, we surveyed the moms probably 2-3 times a week to see what exactly they needed. And so we were able to provide some rental assistance as well through some grants. And, surprisingly, we were able, I think, to we look at our budget for 2020, we were able to kind of sustain that. We thought we were going to see a greater loss. But I think people front-loaded support to help us out, and we found some emergency funding. And so that's we're talking about resilience now, and obviously, it's the ability to pivot, right, when things are coming your way. And I think our staff was able to do that in a great way. And we're even able to purchase a building that's very key to our boys, and having them involved in that process, and them knowing that no matter what, we're still here for them is something I think they're going to remember as they're adults, and that they'll, pay it forward.
Absolutely. And that building that you're providing is obviously a symbol of the importance of people physically gathering together. How do you think how do you think the design and that space is going to help to execute your mission?
Yeah, well, it's a home for our boys, as we say, and it'll probably be 15,000, 16,000 square feet. At the end of it, and we have some great architects, Chaplin, Pierre, that's supporting the project. Broadmoor is actually helping out with the construction part of it, and they've thought about these things and how boys are going to be able to interact. And so thinking of next year, hopefully when it's complete, what does that look like? And so that's all part of that design. But the building has, I can go on for about 20 different things that it'll do for the boys, but it's a great home base for them. So they're going to love it. We'll still continue to do things virtually. I think on the, you were talking about technology, and we developed the app that we use for our communication with mentors and mentees. So all of our activities are just on this app, and the boys are able to RSVP, the mentors are able to RSVP, and so that's helped us out as well.
Gotcha. And I know Julia and Daniel have recently undergone some pretty major renovation and ground up, and they both have received awards. So congratulations.
Thank you.
As y'all sort of went through planning out your space, I know you were planning out prior to these events, but how do you feel that that physical space plays a role again in supporting your mission? And are there any steps that you're taking in place to sort of pivot with this new change?
You know, moving from downtown into City Park, we were very conscious of how important it was to be community facing and to have spaces that are available for community use for a variety of purposes. And so we went into our original planning design work with the idea of flexibility and community engagement, and have a number of spaces that were designed as primarily to be used this way, but also could be used other ways. And now that the museum has closed, we've actually opened our doors to a school, and we're hosting Langston Hughes pre-K and kindergarten classes. We have 5 classes that arrive every morning about 7:15 and are there all day and will be through December. So those spaces that are designed to be flexible have a whole new outlook on life and usage. And it's really been extraordinary to think through the process of how we designed our new museum as a children's museum, but also as a place that could house all sorts of community programs and even partners. We have partner office space in our museum that's now being used by the school. And so it's, you know, that's part of pivoting, is just thinking about the flexibility and the creativity and the importance of relationships. And probably the word that I would put at the very top is relevance. What is relevant for you as an organization at this point in time? And then how do you respond to what is relevant so that you can continue to sustain yourself? I think if you're relevant, then you become more sustainable and certainly more resilient. And that's how we've tried to really recalibrate all of the investment of our wonderful new space and to share it in a new way.
And Julie, I'll say real quickly, I think that move to City Park was incredible. You know, and I know for a fact, you know, I'm sure everybody was not on board with moving from downtown. But I can't tell you, you know, as somebody who's a parent now, the accessibility of that, the other things in the area, you know, so the ability to go to the Children's Museum and then also go to the park afterwards if I need to get a little bit more energy out of kids. But even the design within that, that outside area, you know, in the courtyard is just great. You know, that's probably of the things we'll do every time we go there. You know, we probably spend half the time outside as much as we do inside.
Thank you. And, you know, our focus has been hugely on environmental education and really training the next generation of environmentalists and engineers and so on. But having beautiful outdoor space at this point in our city and world's history has been terrific, because it's much safer to have in-person learning outside. And we're hosting a variety of meetings and gatherings, small scale, but with the outdoor spaces. And the restaurant, the cafe, Acorn, wonderful cafe, is able to really fulfill its delivery of delicious food, having outdoor spaces as well. So it's that design that goes beyond your sort of initial core priority is very important.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. You know, the thing that I have learned most of all, I think, through the process of opening this new building is the importance of flexibility. Because, I mean, even if you do the best thought out process for designing your building, from master planning of the site all the way through the project to completion with a vision for what you're going to do with it, you're still, the thing that's going to be the best part about it is the flexibility to do something that you didn't realize you were going to want to do or have to do for whatever reason. And I mean, even before the pandemic, we learned that about our new building, is that we discovered when we opened it that it was capable of doing things for us that actually weren't the things that we initially thought we wanted to achieve by building this building. Not that those initial things weren't still priorities and important and active, but we learned just by opening the building that there were also other things that it could do for us. And so, you know, good design brings that type of flexibility. And certainly that's a benefit for us in many ways, including how we're able to respond to the pandemic. We wouldn't be able to have any interior exhibitions open at this time if it weren't for the exhibitions that we're able to do in the new construction portion of our new facility, because of the limitations of the in design of the historic buildings that we otherwise occupy in terms of the small rooms and the capacity limits for what's safe to have in there in those spaces. And so that simple thing alone enables us to do things now that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. But most of all, it's all about the flexibility.
Great. And Elise, how have you as an organization, I guess, rethought any of your messaging, or have y'all pivoted during this time?
Yeah, it's funny. We, even before the pandemic, used to say that working in the arts gives you a definite comfort with ambiguity, which has really served us well in this time. I think working in a nonprofit gives you a certain comfort with ambiguity as well. We also, like Kevin said, we've noticed that doing things online has opened up some accessibility, has given us better attendance at some of our workshops. And it's interesting because when I was having conversations when schools shut down, originally, it was great to hear from our school leaders. They all of a sudden started understanding one of the values that KidSmart brings to their schools, which is that the arts are highly engaging for their students. And we had all of these challenges with, our kids, first of all, the equity issue, are they able to log on? But then, do they want to log on? And we saw that when our artists were in the virtual classroom with the classroom teachers, that we had much higher attendance, more kids logging into those classes. We were able to really get our artists to continue the work they were doing in those virtual classrooms, but also created, for the first time, a KidSmart YouTube channel where our artists created these great art apart videos. And just in the last few months, we've had over 5,000 unique views of that are really expanding our reach in ways that we hadn't really thought about, because YouTube is available worldwide, and so we've got lots of kids all over that are participating in that. And now that they know about KidSmart, when we're able to do virtual parenting workshops or live art classes, we had an educator from Malaysia attend one of our workshops last week, just because the way that we've been able to expand the reach. We were worried that coming into this new school year, that there was going to be a devaluing of the arts. Obviously, everyone in schools have a lot of things that they're trying to figure out. But all of our schools came back to work with us again. And one of our principals actually said to me, all of a sudden I get it. Teachers are multimedia artists. They are going to have to figure all of this out, and they're going to be online, and they're going to be in person, and they're going to have to figure out how to make their lessons engaging and beautiful, and really, you tap into that creative bone that we know that educators have. So it's been an interesting pivot for us. Obviously, everything that KidSmart does is hands-on and highly engaging, and we have a certain limitation when we moved online, but we've been able to really work with our amazing staff to figure out how to translate that in ways that make sense. And so I think that through that, we've been able to not just continue the programming that we had been doing, but really expand in some really new and exciting ways.
That's awesome to hear, Elise. And not only are teachers multimedia experts, our parents are at home, right? With all of these challenges. Well, we're going to turn to something that's very important, which is the ability to keep your nonprofit running through financial resources. I know Sonny hit on a little bit earlier that they've had some front-loaded commitments that was key to keeping their budget on track. I think some of the things we've learned during this time is that if there's economic instability or the perception of that, that it limits the amount of fundraising or dollars available going to y'all's organization. So would love to hear if there's been any creative sort of measures in fundraising or in some of the earned income that you guys are seeking out. Kevin, let's start with you. I have one of them behind me.
Yes, so we have been very creative and thoughtful about different ways to do fundraising. You have a beautiful flag behind you. We did a limited edition run of our Proud to Call It Home brand with some merchandise opportunities. So you have the porch flag there displayed. I've got one hanging in front of my house and actually shipped a few out to some friends this week. So that's one of the things we've looked at, or what are the opportunities we have in this organization through the brands we own. Proud to Call It Home is obviously, a near and dear New Orleans staple that's been around for quite a while. And so we looked at the opportunity with that to spread a message about New Orleans and that we are proud even in this moment where we're dealing with so many different crises. And one of the things that COVID has brought home, in addition to, the issues for nonprofits and individuals, is that there is an economic disparity there in how it's impacted the city. And so with that Proud to Call It Home messaging, the thought is let's make this a city that we can all be proud to call home for everybody at different levels of the city. We've also looked at some different opportunities, organizationally. One of the decisions, speaking back to kind of design of space and thought, we made a decision last year to utilize some of the space in our building for a tenant. This was pre-COVID, and so that was something where we recognized we had some space that was underutilized. And instead of using it, honestly, as a glorified storage area for some of our project needs, let's convert that space. So that was something that was done pre-COVID with a lot of thought about design of the space that really benefited us now to have that source of income. And as we kind of look forward, in addition to things like merchandising, we're also looking in ways that we can engage our membership and the folks that are committed to the organization in more peer-to-peer efforts to do fundraising. So currently we have our virtual gala going on right now, where we're supporting YLC through that, but also supporting restaurants and artists in the city as well that are part of this big network that have always supported us. So through that virtual gala, we are raising money for YLC, but we're also supporting the artists that donate and the restaurants through purchase of gift cards. Sonny actually participated in one of our happy hours recently, so I appreciate that. So yeah, there is a need to get more creative, and I think that's one of the things we're looking at the rest of this year and next year, continuing to look at opportunities, be it through merchandising, or another thing we've looked at is kind of lowering the barrier of entry when we're talking about people supporting and donating to the organization. So with that virtual gala, we've really lowered the sponsorship levels this year, understanding that, hey, organizations are in a different place than they might have been a year or two ago. So something like a $3,000 table that they would have donated last year may not be really feasible this year. So we started with much lower levels at $250 to really make it a lot easier for supporters to engage with us. But it'll definitely be something moving forward. I think that's one of the things about this time right now. There's so many things that we're experiencing and adapting to, and we're learning lessons from all of that, right? And I think the biggest takeaway I've had is this idea of meeting people where they're at, both figuratively and literally. That's kind of our roles of nonprofits now, is that be it the people that fund us and engage with us are the people that are the end users of the services we offer. We have to be more flexible and really understand where people are at and making sure that the things we're offering meet those needs. And that translates to fundraising as well.
Absolutely. And I think that, fundraising is simply not transactional anymore. And how do you bring value to those organizations? Because there are a lot of competing factors out there. Julia, I know you mentioned that your space was being utilized by some schools in the area. So that was a great joint venture. Any other creative measures that you're taking for some long-term sustainable revenue?
Well, we also had a virtual fundraiser that just concluded in a really wonderful success. I mean, we sort of went into Cherish the Children, which we've done for 22 years as a great gathering of people. Couldn't be a gathering of people at our museum. And so, we went into it with unanswered questions on how, when, where, The why question we could answer. We needed to have the financial support, but it ended up being an amazingly successful partnership between Vicki Brennan Company that runs Acorn, our cafe, and the Gold Ring Family Foundation, and many generous donors who contributed auction items. We had a virtual auction, virtual dinners all over town. It really ended up being a very special event. And I wish you well, Kevin, in sort of shifting to virtual fundraising or a fundraising event. There are a lot of moving parts that are unprecedented, but it can really pull people together in a neat way. So I think that's the new norm for the short while.
And I'll second that too, that you made a point about the partnerships, right? And I think that's something we've realized is that some of those partnerships you've had in place, and I'm not pandering, but AOS is a great example, of being really collaborative in these times where they can help provide some direction and support. And that's something we've realized, really kind of leaning on some of the individuals and businesses that have been great supporters of YLC through the years.
And I think as we deliver our mission perhaps differently now, people in the philanthropic world are also responding to, again, the relevance of what we're doing. And, when I think about our school project, our museum school project, we sort of blazed ahead not really knowing how we would pay for this. There are a lot of additional expenses that have come with it. And the Hellis Foundation stepped up and said, this is an important part of recovery, to really enable these children to have in-person learning in a safe place where they're guaranteed to likely go through the whole fall with their teachers. And that's just a critical part of making up for some of the losses that we know that they likely incurred, but also just present, offering some really new opportunities. So I think going back to our fundraising challenges, and they're across the board, everybody is really having a hard time trying to figure out how you sort of build a different financial model, but delivering your mission a little differently, a little more creatively, engaging in fundraising a little differently, a little more creatively is an important challenge and charge for all of us.
Absolutely. Daniel, Elise, have y'all had any maybe creative ideas for other nonprofits listening today?
Well, sustainability is one of our organizational values. So I think that there are a few things that I would mention. One is, I've got to say, AOS has been a huge sponsor. Our board chair, Suzanne Dumez, has been just, so amazing in helping us really over the last few years reach out and understand development and business development and fund development and the importance of stewarding and all of those pieces, and has really, I just have to say, our board has been so crucial in stepping up to make sure that we've been able to maintain that sustainability. We have a virtual fundraiser coming up on October 29th, Cocktails for Kids Smart, not too late to buy tickets. And we really thought that our fundraiser was going to, we thought we were going to see a fraction of what we had seen in the past, but because everyone had really, we've been putting out all of this content, we've been having a lot more success with our institutional marketing and having a lot more success with our reach. The virtual fundraiser has already shown to be very successful. So I think that that's huge. I think that the other thing I would say is, the money that we get is tied to our impact. And so investing in evaluation and assessment is so important, especially for us working in the education sector, being able to show stories of change, being able to show that data. I know it sounds counterintuitive to say, you should really be spending money on evaluation to get money later, but it's something that we have been really thinking about for, the last 10 years, and really ramping up what that evaluation looks like and how we think about it, how we talk about it. And then the other piece is just being able to make sure that where your money is coming from is diversified. So yes, we do rely on our fundraiser, we rely on grants and individual donations, but 30% of our budget is earned revenue. And so some of that comes from things like after school and enrichment, which aren't happening, but we were very lucky to diversify that, being able to do professional development and coaching and different ways of supporting schools, not just here, but regionally, nationally, has been able to continue. And so that when we're looking at what our full budget is, we're not trying to fundraise for 100% of that. We've got a pretty solid stream of earned revenue that also comes to us, and that helps to mitigate that need and that shortfall as well at times like this. And have a reserve. A reserve fund is so important.
I
Absolutely.
think for us at the Historic New Orleans Collection, our top priority has been in this area has been stewardship of our existing relationships by making sure that our supporters know what their support makes it possible for us to do. We have not been doing very much asking for additional support. We've really been concentrating on making sure that we're doing a good job of communicating to our supporters that they make important things possible. We are able to do that because we're a privileged organization with a very with a robust endowment. And so our priority is to make sure that we are using what we have in the best possible way at this critical time, and that the supporters that we rely on to make our operation even greater than what we're able to do on our own, that they understand what it is that they make it possible for us to do. And so, this, by concentrating on this now, I think we are setting ourselves up for, in the future, being able to really expand our universe of support and do even more. And so in combination with this concentration on stewardship, we're investing a lot in strategizing for that future now. We're in the midst of a major strategic planning initiative, and a large focus on that is understanding where our potential community connections are so that we can pursue initiatives that benefit the broadest possible spectrum of people, and therefore also generate support from the broadest possible spectrum of people. And I think that the future of supporting the Historic New Orleans Collection will be something that will also be about uplifting all of the groups and people that we positively impact through our work. And we're concentrating on building those relationships right at this time.
And Rebecca, I think also for us, finding supporters outside of New Orleans has been key as well. And we have a lot of supporters that are from all over the country, but reaching out to them more. They've been doing a lot of check-ins on us. There's a lot of people that love New Orleans, obviously. They went to school here for college, Tulane, Loyola, Dillard, Xavier. Their kids go to school here. And so we've developed an advisory group out in New York and then one on the West Coast, and that has a lot of these relationships. And so we've been able to reach out to them, and they've been able to support us as well. So I think for us, that's been another strategy as well.
I'm sorry, I thought Kevin was going to say something. Now we're coming up on time. I wanted to check to see if we got any questions in the chat.
No questions yet, but I would encourage everybody to pop one in there if you have one for our panelists.
All right.
To pick up on a comment that Daniel made about strategic planning, and I think that for all of us, we've had to pivot, we've had to recalibrate, but we're also thinking about strategic planning. And in a way, we've been given amazing opportunities, because here with all of the challenges that we faced collectively as a country this year, you know, we're looking with very fresh eyes at economic realities, at workforce realities, at racial and equity needs, at healthcare and health and wellness. We're looking very differently at childcare and school, early childhood, all the way through. There's so many in climate change. There's so many big challenges that we've faced and dealt with one way or another, that it really does offer us as organizations a chance to say, how do we respond to these differently now? How do we think strategically and address the challenges that are in abundance right now and come out as stronger institutions? I think that's what resilience is ultimately all about. But in a weird way, we all have a great opportunity to rethink very strategically, but because of these different challenges, we're looking through very different lenses. And hopefully we'll all come out a lot stronger, maybe differently, likely differently, but it does give us a chance to grow and connect and make New Orleans an even prouder place to be.
I think you're my soulmate, Julia. I hear in what you're saying a lot of things that I have been thinking this whole time, and that word opportunity, you know, that's the word. In strategic plan, you know, no successful strategic plan is created as a crisis response. Strategic planning and crisis response are not the same thing. And so in order to think strategically, the first thing you have to do is understand that there are opportunities. You have to see the opportunities. So when you find those opportunities, then you can start talking about strategizing to, you know, achieve things based on those opportunities.
In the vein of talking about opportunity and collaborating with one another, we have a question. How are you thinking about engaging in strategic partnerships or restructuring as a way to increase impact and sustainability?
Well, you know, if I may just kind of answer that first, if I may, you know, I guess, you know, when I try to boil down what we're trying to achieve through our strategic planning right now, you know, it really gets down to putting what we call the audience first. It's really finding ways to understand how to execute our mission with the prioritization placed on the audience. So the needs of the audience first. And I guess that starts by making sure that our institution and our audience are effectively the same thing. It's a concept that's very much based in inclusivity. And so, you know, that's really, I think, the most important thing that we can do at this time is to engage with a discovery process about ourselves that's based in not just asking ourselves who we are, but also reaching out to others to find out from them who they think we are and who they would like to see us be, and then incorporating all of those things into a definition of ourselves that we can move forward with. And you know, collaboration and partnership is at the heart of that. And what we're going to be building is, I think, a series of relationships that touch on essentially every aspect of what we do as a museum, from how we collect materials to how we interpret materials to how we produce products like books and exhibitions and all of those things, to bring to all of that work collaborative processes that expand our definition of ourselves and therefore the stories that we're telling and who's doing the telling. So it's all about collaboration and partnership.
And I think the important part of that question are the two words, strategic and partnership. And it becomes strategic when there's value for the partner. So together we're both advancing goals. And at the Louisiana Children's Museum right now, we have a lot of new projects that we're working on. One is an early learning, it's a first 1,000 days brain development project, and our partners there are from the Brain Institute at Tulane and the Mental Health Institute at Tulane. Another is working with a new set of developing a new water curriculum, and that's with the Corps of Engineers. Another is working with a curriculum with our Edible Garden, and that's with LSU Ag Center and their Master Gardeners. And then the school that we're hosting right now is in partnership with the New Orleans Public Schools and the Charter Management Organization of First Line Schools. So none of these projects are done in isolation. They're done in partnership with another organization whose goals are similar to ours, compatible with ours. And we all come away strengthened, being able to do something we couldn't do on our own, benefiting from someone else's expertise and talent and energy and commitment. But then I think it's a win-win-win all the way around. Much as we learned after Katrina, a lot of us learned we couldn't stand up straight. We had to lean on somebody else, but together we could stay up. That's sort of value.
Absolutely. And Elise, did you have something to add? That one? Okay, you had unmuted earlier. We're getting to the end here. I want to thank everyone for their questions in the chat, and anything we didn't answer today, we will try to follow up in our follow-up email today, our post. But with the last 8 minutes, I would love to hear from all of our panelists on, I know Julia, you already shared a little bit with us, but some silver linings that have come out of this, and any last bit of advice for our audience today, and ways that they could get engaged today, like buy a ticket to the Cocktails for Kids Mart. So Julia, we'll start with you.
Silver linings are abundant. We have had an opportunity in this quieter time to really advance the mission and the work of the museum of things that we wanted to do in our new location in City Park and weren't able to do because we were so busy welcoming literally hundreds of thousands of people. So this has been a time for us to dig into some of these projects that we hope will really move the needle on the potential of where children can go in our city. And not to take up much time, but really that's been fabulous to be able to dig in and to start to create some really meaningful programs and work with tremendous people.
Excellent. Kevin?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think one, we've had the opportunity to do some inflection. We have undergone an alignment project to really look at the organization and how we support our leadership development efforts. But we've also had the chance to collaborate with a lot of great people during this time. So I think about our partners. I think about some of the efforts we've made with Geno Inc. recently to really look at how we can play a role in some of the things they're doing, trying to bring young people back to the city. I think about through this virtual gala, we've engaged two of the people on here. Julia was kind enough as a past role model to participate in some interviews for us, as well as Sonny. So that's a big piece. I think there was a question about how nonprofits can operate, and going back to what other folks said, just that collaboration. We're part of this greater ecosystem, that meets all these needs in the city. And I've learned so much from being on this panel. I've learned so much from the conversations I've had with other nonprofit leaders. And then right now for us, the reason I'm on this call as board president is because we don't have a current executive director. So that's one of the needs we currently have out there. So I would encourage anybody that's involved in nonprofits to please take a look at our listing, repost that, share that, or if you're interested, please apply. That's available on WorkNOLA. And then also short-term, please support our virtual gala. Right now you can go on our ylcnola.org website and purchase tickets for our raffle and auction items, as well as some other information on there. But I do encourage anybody listening, take some time, get involved with nonprofits. I think for me, the opportunity to really understand more about this and the needs in our city, it gives me just a greater appreciation for all the work that people are doing in the community to support this city and make it so special.
Thank you. Elise?
Yeah, I feel like the collaboration that I've seen during this has been really dramatic. The arts and culture sector, I know, has been working a lot in creative response, getting, during school shutdowns, getting art supplies and activities out to students during meal distribution. having regular conversations about organizational sustainability and issues of equity and all of these different things that are really so pressing. I think that what I would say though is one of the things that kind of got us not ready for this big change is that really making sure that you have strong organizational values and that your programming and your board members and your staff members are all really 100% behind what those values are. For us, that, it took a lot of work to determine those values, and then now they're baked into everything we do. When we're looking at board members to come on board, we talk about how do they relate to the values that we hold as an organization. When we're at our board meetings, we're talking about how does our programming meet the values that we've set for our organization. And because of that, I think it builds a really strong base for everyone's involvement and for really rich conversations. So I think that to me, those are some of the things that have really come to the surface, as well as just this idea of, really thinking about the opportunities that are coming out of this, rather than kind of having a deficit mindset, and thinking about, for us, like I said, being able to expand our reach, being able to have really more meaningful conversations with our sponsors, with our funders, with our schools. So, I think that, that idea of making sure that we're talking about the abundance, talking about the opportunities that arise, has been something that's really served us well during this time, and something I've seen in a lot of other organizations we work with.
Excellent. And Daniel, any silver linings from y'all's perspective?
Well, we've had in the first 5 months of the pandemic, we had we engaged with as many people through our online programs as we normally do in an entire year at our museum. And so I think that is on its surface a silver lining. But the really exciting thing about that is the extent to which the high percentage of that group of engaged population are people local here in New Orleans who were engaging with us because they were, because they live here and they love New Orleans. They want to understand the relevance of our history to our current situation. And, the opportunity to build a bridge between those online engages and people who become visitors to our museum when we're open again and support our museum as members. I mean, that is really a special opportunity to really create a bigger presence of the local population in our French Quarter Museum operation, which is that portion of our institution which has traditionally been most visited by tourists and not locals. Traditionally, we get a lot of locals engaging with us in our programs, our lectures, our film series, our book clubs, and those types of things. But as far as our museum visitors are concerned, it's predominantly tourists. And so the opportunity for us to turn these people who are engaging with us online into museum visitors in the future, that is a world of opportunity for improvements in the French Quarter for the benefit of all New Orleanians, as a place that's defined by its history and therefore defines all of us, no matter what section of the city we come from, what our backgrounds are. But it's important to all of us because of its historic value. And so I'm super excited about the opportunities for us in terms of that aspect of executing our mission in the future. And, I see that very much as a silver lining to this time period.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Sonny?
Yeah, I think there's a few for us. I think our staff has been working so well together because we've had to strategize every day, multiple times a day. It's been amazing to see the teamwork. I'd say that's one. Another one is kind of our programming has, it's been easier for others to access, as far as we have a virtual meeting with Drew Holiday and Alvin Kamara, which, trying to get folks like that our boys want to see and engage with, even outside of New Orleans, would be hard. They're not stopping by our office every day, but it's easier to connect virtually. So I think that it's been a lot easier for us to have conversations and FaceTime with people who obviously can't come to our office and ultimately help our mission programming wise and fundraising as well. We've been able to add a lot more mentors to our program. Obviously, with a lot of the social justice things that are going on, people have seen Son of a Saint as really an organization that they like to invest in. You know, we serve 95% boys of color. And so they've seen that, they know that, and that's helped us as we go on our road to 200 plus boys in our program. So I would say those three things are things that, you know, that we see as a silver lining, I guess. We have we're actually doing our Drive to a Decade fundraiser right now. We turned 10 in January. So if anybody wants to focus on that, want to contribute, support, please go to sonofasaint.org. If they want to sign up to be a volunteer or a mentor, they can go to that site. And check us out on Instagram. We have a lot of activities, Son of a Saint ORG. So.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everyone again for participating and sharing your insight on how to continue to emerge smarter. I always go back to some quote I heard where there was like a magnet buried deep below this town, and it either keeps you here or draws you back. And I think all of our audience today is all passionate about improving the lives of everyone here in our community. So thank you for doing that on a daily basis. And we will be sharing, as I mentioned later today, the recording with all of this great information on how to get plugged in and involved with these 5 organizations. So I hope everyone has a happy Friday, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.